An important part of children's social reality is their role as consumers. Television has an obvious impact on children as consumers in countries like the United States. Where television is an almost purely commercial venture. And television advertising is an important part of children's exposure to the medium. However, television also affects the child as consumer, even when there is no advertising at all. In the 1950s, it was found that British children who had access only to the BBC, which carries no advertising, had more materialistic ambitions than those without television. Adolescent boys who watch television, for example, were more focused on what they would have in the future. Adolescent boys without television were more focused on what they would be doing. The longer the child's experience with television, the more this materialistic outlook increased. Apparently, the visual images of television create an emphasis on visible and tangible objects, hence on consumption, in defining one's identity and lifestyle. Regardless of their exposure to commercials on television, Children who watch television. Children who watch television. Children who watch television tend to become more interested. Tend to become more interested. Tend to become more interested in their future possessions. In their future possessions. In their future possessions than those who don't. Than those who don't. Than those who don't.